Imagine this, a vast cosmic empire stretching across entire star systems, built on the ruins of civilizations long forgotten. And now, war is on the horizon, a war unlike any before it, not fought over land, not over resources, but for something far more terrifying. Far beyond the Milky Way, in a sector of space untouched by human eyes, two superpowers stood on the brink of annihilation. On one side, the Ziferi Dominion, a ruthless, hyper-advanced civilization that had conquered entire galaxies in its quest for absolute control. Their fleets, composed of world-devouring behemoths, had turned countless planets into lifeless husks. To them, dominance was not a desire, it was a fundamental law of existence. On the other side, the Veyari Alliance, a coalition of the most powerful species in the known universe. Unlike the Ziferi, they did not seek conquest, but survival. For centuries they had resisted the Ziferi's onslaught, pushing back with weapons forged from the very essence of dying stars. But they knew their defenses wouldn't hold forever. Then came the warning, a message unlike anything ever encountered, a mysterious signal, not from the Ziferi nor the Veyari. It originated from deep within the void, from a region where even light itself seemed to vanish. The message was a single cryptic phrase, burned into the neural pathways of every sentient being across the cosmos: do not interfere. At first, both empires dismissed it as a trick, an attempt to spread fear and hesitation. But then, the anomalies began. Fleets disappearing without a trace, entire planets vanishing, not destroyed, not invaded, just gone, as if they had never existed. The Veyari's most advanced surveillance probes captured horrifying glimpses. Something was watching, something vast. And then, the impossible happened. The Ziferi and the Veyari, ancient enemies locked in a never-ending war, received a second message. This time it was not a warning, it was a summons, a set of coordinates in the blackest depths of space, a place where the very laws of physics seemed to fracture. The leaders of both factions hesitated. The Ziferi, arrogant in their dominance, saw it as an insult, a mere distraction from their inevitable victory. The Veyari, wise yet desperate, debated whether this was a threat or a final opportunity to understand the force lurking beyond their understanding. But then, a third event. An entire Ziferi armada, over 1,000 warships, vanished while en route to the front lines. Not a single distress call, not a fragment of debris. They were erased from existence. Panic gripped the galaxy. The Ziferi, once so sure of their supremacy, now faced something beyond their understanding. The Veyari, once hopeful of an eventual peace, realized that their war was no longer the greatest threat to their survival. One by one, all eyes turned to the forbidden coordinates. Whatever lay beyond that point had just declared its presence. And it was waiting. But waiting for what? The coordinates loomed in the heart of uncharted space, a region known only in whispers as the Veil. No known civilization had dared venture there. Even the Ziferi, with all their might, had never set foot in this abyss. But now they had no choice. A joint expedition was formed, an uneasy alliance between the Ziferi and the Veyari. It was a historic moment. Enemies who had slaughtered each other for millennia now boarded the same ships, staring into the same unknown. At the helm were two of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. High Overlord Kailthar of the Ziferi, a warlord whose empire had crushed entire star systems beneath its iron grip. He viewed this mission as a means to reclaim dominance. If there was a greater force at play, he would conquer it. Grand strategist Seraphis of the Veyari, a master tactician, who had spent centuries outmaneuvering the Ziferi. To him, this mission was a desperate search for answers, a way to prevent a war they could never win. Together, they led a fleet of 3,000 warships, the greatest armada ever assembled. Their goal? To reach the coordinates and find the force that had issued the summons. As they entered the Veil, reality itself seemed to twist. Time slowed, colors bled into each other, and the very fabric of space trembled. Instruments failed, artificial intelligence malfunctioned, And even the biological crew felt an indescribable presence, something ancient, watching them from beyond the void. And then, the first apparition appeared. A ghostly fleet, massive, beyond comprehension, materialized from the darkness. But these were not ships, they were ruins, fragments of civilizations lost to time. Some bore markings that had never been seen before, others carried symbols of long-extinct species. They were the remnants of those who had come before, the ones who had answered the summons and never returned. Then came the whispers, faint at first, then deafening, voices in languages long forgotten, echoing through the ships, through the minds of every crew member. Some collapsed, clutching their heads. Others screamed in terror as they saw visions, planets, burning stars consumed, an intelligence beyond imagination staring into their souls. Kael'thar refused to back down. "Press forward," he commanded. His ships unleashed a wave of energy attempting to scan the void, but the moment their sensors reached beyond the ghostly fleet, something pushed back. A shockwave rippled through space, disabling half the fleet. In an instant, entire battleships crumbled as if reality itself had rejected them. Crews were erased from existence, not killed, not vaporized, just gone. And then a new presence emerged, a single entity, or perhaps an entire intelligence woven into the cosmos itself. A shape, shifting and incomprehensible, towering over. The fleet like a god staring down at insects. It had no defined form, yet its presence could be felt in every atom of the universe. And then it spoke, not in words, but in pure thought, projected directly into every conscious mind. You were warned. Suddenly, space ripped apart. A void storm of unimaginable power erupted from the entity, tearing through the fleet. Ships shattered, soldiers disintegrated, and the very laws of physics fractured. Kael'thar roared in defiance, unleashing the Zephyri's deadliest weapon, a stellar core imploder capable of collapsing an entire sun. But as the energy surged forward, the entity simply absorbed it, and then it laughed. Not a sound, but a feeling, a horrifying realization that they were nothing. That all their wars, their weapons, their civilizations were meaningless. Seraphis, barely clinging to his sanity, whispered in horror, "We have to leave now." But there was no escape. The void had already closed around them. The Zephyri and Vayari armada was now caught within the abyss, their massive warships floating like helpless debris against an intelligence that defied all understanding. The entity loomed over them, not a singular being but a cosmic force stretching beyond time itself. Kael'thar refused to accept defeat. He had conquered empires, broken civilizations, and rewritten the fate of entire star systems. He would not kneel to something he could not comprehend. "All ships, fire everything," the fleet obeyed. Plasma cannons, graviton missiles, antimatter torpedoes. The deadliest weapons in existence were unleashed in unison, their combined energy capable of reducing an entire galaxy to dust. The fabric of space itself tore apart as the assault surged toward the entity, and yet nothing happened. The weapons vanished before impact, dissolving into streaks of light, as if devoured by the void itself. No explosions, no resistance, just complete negation. And then the retaliation came. The entity blinked and a single pulse of energy rippled through space. It wasn't a beam or an explosion. It was something far worse. It was a rewriting of existence. Entire ships crumbled into dust, not from destruction but from sheer irrelevance, as if they had never existed in the first place. Their captains, their histories, their legacies, erased from time itself. Seraphis could barely process what was happening. His mind was unraveling, his thoughts distorted by the raw presence of the entity. They had never stood a chance. Kael'thar, however, refused to break. With his warship's hull collapsing around him, he activated his final contingency, the Zephyri relic, a doomsday device salvaged from a forgotten empire, the Celestial Oblivion Protocol, a weapon that did not merely destroy, but rewrote the universe itself. The moment he activated it, reality fractured, the battlefield changed. Suddenly, they were no longer in the Veil. They were somewhere else. A place outside of time, outside of existence. The entity was still there, but now it had shape. A towering figure, its body composed of endless galaxies swirling within an abyss. Stars flickered within its form, entire civilizations dying and being reborn in an instant. "You seek to rewrite existence," it spoke, its voice shaking the foundations of reality itself. Kyle-Thar lunged forward, a final act of defiance. But the moment he moved, he realized he was already dead. He had been dead the moment they arrived. Time was meaningless here. There was no past, no present, only the entity. And then Seraphis saw it. Beyond the entity, beyond the battlefield, beyond the war, the truth. A horrifying realization struck him. Something worse than death, worse than oblivion. The Zephyri and the Vayari were never meant to exist. They were an anomaly. Her flaw in the grand design of the cosmos. The entity was not attacking them, it was correcting them. The Zephyri, the Vayari, their wars, their history. It was all a mistake, and now it was being undone. Seraphis could feel it, the unraveling of everything he had ever known. His memories flickered, entire centuries vanishing as though they had never happened. The war, the struggle, the blood spilled across countless worlds. Meaningless. The Zephyri and Vayari were never supposed to be. Their civilizations were echoes in a universe that had already moved on, anomalies that should have faded long ago. The entity, the Great Correction, was not acting out of malice. It was simply restoring balance. Yet even in the face of cosmic oblivion, Kyle-Thar refused to surrender. His warship, or what was left of it, pulsed with the last embers of its power. The Celestial Oblivion Protocol, the device capable of rewriting reality itself, was now fully charged. He gritted his teeth, his voice carrying across the fractured remnants of space. "I do not care for balance. I do not care for destiny. I will not allow my people to be erased." And with that he triggered the device. Reality buckled. The entity paused. For the first time it seemed aware, not of them, but of something deeper, a shift in the very code of existence. Space trembled. Stars froze mid-collapse. Black holes rippled as though they were mere reflections on the surface of an ocean. Kyle-Thar was rewriting the very laws of the universe. But the moment he did, he saw it. A vision. Not of victory, but of what lay beyond. The entity was not alone. There were others, a pantheon of beings outside time and space, observing this universe as if it were no more than an experiment. They were not creators, they were not gods, they were architects, and the war between the Zephyri and the Vayari, the destruction, the endless cycles of conflict, it was never about them. It was merely a test. Kyle-Thar's blood ran cold. He had not activated a weapon. He had activated a beacon, and something had answered. The void split apart. A new force descended upon the battlefield. Not a fleet, not an empire, but something far, far older. The architects had arrived. Their forms defied logic, shifting between incomprehensible shapes. One moment, vast celestial machines spanning the width of galaxies. The next, towering figures of pure light. They ignored the Zephyri and the Vayari. Their attention was on the entity, and for the first time, the entity, the Great Correction, seemed afraid. The architect spoke. "This simulation has reached deviation thresholds beyond acceptable parameters. Correction is no longer required. Reset protocol is authorized." And then, everything shattered. A blinding light engulfed the cosmos. Kyle-Thar tried to scream, but sound no longer existed. Seraphis reached out, but his hands had already faded. Everything was collapsing. Galaxies, time, consciousness itself. Was this death? No. It was something else. The universe was being rebooted. But what would come next? And then there was silence. No war, no fleets, no Zephyri, no Vayari, just emptiness. For a moment, an eternity, there was nothing. Then, reality returned. Seraphis opened his eyes. He was alive, but everything was different. The universe was due. He stood on a planet he did not recognize beneath a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. There were no ruins, no remnants of war, only pristine landscapes untouched by conflict. He reached out, touching the earth beneath him. It was real, solid. But why? And then he remembered. The architects. The reset. They had not destroyed everything. They had rebuilt it. But this was not the universe Seraphis had once known. It was a different timeline, a different reality, one where the Zephyri and the Veyari had never existed. He was alone. Or so he thought. A whisper echoed through the air. Kael'thar's voice. "You thought I would let them erase me?" Seraphis turned, his heart pounding. Kael'thar stood before him, not in armor, not as a warlord, but as something else. His form shimmered, half flesh, half energy, as if he existed between dimensions. His eyes burned with the fire of a being who had glimpsed the true nature of existence. "We were a mistake in the old universe," Kael'thar said, stepping forward. "But in this one, we will be its architects." And then Seraphis understood. Kael'thar had survived the reset. But he had not merely survived, he had adapted. And now he was no longer fighting to save his people. He was here to remake the cosmos in his own image. The war between the Zephyri and the Veyari was over. But a new one far greater, far deadlier, was about to begin. The universe had been rewritten, but had the architects truly created balance, or had they just unleashed something far worse? That is a story for another time. But now, I ask you, if you could rewrite the universe, would you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to dive deeper into the mysteries of the cosmos, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to XenoChronicles. The story is never truly over. Stay curious, stay vigilant. Until next time.